Today, I'm going to be teaching you guys how you could scrape multiple pages on a website. When a website splits up its content into multiple pages, this is called pagination, and I'll be showing you guys two different examples in this video. In addition to this, what we're going to be covering is timers, and we're going to go through setting up a basic timer and then also an example of setting up a random timer. And the reason why you want to set up a random timer when you are scraping websites is it helps avoid detection. If your scraper gets detected, some websites will block you. And one of the approaches you would want to use is to set up some sort of random time when you're going page to page. A lot to cover in this video. Make sure you have a notebook ready to go. And yeah, let's start coding. Before we jump into this Python code, I want to show you guys both sites that we're going to be scraping. If you've been watching this series, I've been using books to scrape a lot, but ideally, the reason what's really nice about this is there's multiple pages. You can see page 2 of 50 that I'm on right now. We'll talk about this here in a second. And then I'm also using this from Scrape the Site, just some hockey team stats on here. And you can see hockey teams forms, searching, and pagination. We're going to be focusing on the pagination for this, but in future videos, probably look at forms and searching as well. Really to see where this series develops to. But regardless, you can see down here, we have a lot of different pages, right? And the one thing to note is we're gonna have to pay attention to the URL structure and how that is impacted as we go page to page. That's honestly the biggest part, is like figure out how to scrape your stuff, build a for loop, and then just kind of figure the structure of how you want to move to each single page. You know, do you want to scrape every single page? Do you want to scrape a certain amount of pages, right? Things like that and what really matters. But you can see like over here, I go to page 2, right? It still has most of the URL, but it has a question mark. It says page num 2, right? Page 4, and like play around with it. Just do some testing beforehand. And when I go to the books to scrape, right? It's the same thing, right? Like it's the same pattern as you go page to page. So as long as we know how the URL pattern works, we can scrape this pretty easily. Again, I've talked about scraping the site on multiple times, so it shouldn't really be that hard to scrape. It's kind of a beginner friendly site on the scraping side of things. So let's talk about timers. Let's go through some code. And yeah, so what we're going to do first, and I have a Google Colab notebook ready to go. So I'm just going to go is over here, and let's import in everything that I think we're going to need for this video. If we need anything else later, we can import it in again, but hopefully this is everything over here. So import in requests from BS4, import in BeautifulSoup. So import BeautifulSoup, BeautifulSoup. Okay. Import pandas as PD. PD import. I don't think we're going to need this one this time around, but it's all right. We do need time, so import sleep, and we do need random, so import random. And yeah, so I think we're good on that side of things. And what we're going to do now is let this run. It's going to take a second just because I just opened up a brand new notebook. And our first example is actually going to be setting up a timer, because again, you need to set time between scraping every single page. So let's set up a basic timer first. So example 1, setting up a timer. So this is like pretty easy to do. So what we're going to do is for I in range, and we'll put 5 over here. We're going to say print, and I'm honestly just going to print over this, grab this over here instead of typing it out, but we're going to print doing something round and I plus 1. And then you can put sleep over here. And what sleep will tell you is like how much time in between, right? So every time we run through this for loop, right? So I in range, it's going to go all the way up to 5. And it's going to do something each time, right? So it starts at the very bottom. You can see round 1, 3 seconds. Round 2, 3 seconds. 3, 4, and you'll see 5. And it stops, right? Very basic. So you can use something like this, right? Sleep 3 seconds. Very simplistic. But one thing I would recommend, and it's pretty easy to do, is set up a random timer, because what happens, you're going to constantly go at the same site, right, at the same exact time for every single page, you're going to get detected, right? Not all sites care, but some do. So let's add some randomization into it. And it's honestly really easy to add in randomization. So we'll just go over here and say example 2, setting up a random timer. So let's do it on this side of things. What we're going to do is grab this code. We're going to paste it over here. And we're going to set a delay. So we're going to have over here is delay equals, and we're going to say random.uniform. So uniform like that. And then let's pass in 1 to 5. So anywhere from like 1 to 5 seconds on here. Then what we're going to do is pass in this delay on this side of things. And let's print out what our delay is, right? So I'll just grab this over here, and this will tell us our delay. And right, anywhere from 1 to 5 seconds is going to be our delay. It's going to be a float. So you can see the first time it's 3.69 seconds, 2.57, 2.81, 4.71, then 2.63 seconds. So we have that. And one other thing I wanted to show you guys really quick before we go into these examples. We're going to set this over here for example 3. We're going to use a string to format the URL, right? So let's just go through that as well. What we're going to do is once again use this on here. We're going to slightly change this up. So we're using a for loop, and what I'm going to say is like for page, since we're going to take a look at websites. So we're going to say for page in, and we're going to set a range. We'll say like 1 through 6 on this side of things. We're going to set up a URL. So let's do like a very basic example.com. So we're going to say equals, we'll have an F string over here, HTTPS example.com. We're going to say slash page equals, right? And we're going to pass in our page, right? So the page is going to be in this range, right? 1 through 6. We're going to pass in the page each time over here. We have an F string, right? So we're passing in that over here. And then we're going to print this out. Print F fetching URL. And then pass in our URL, right? So then you can see over here, like page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5. So it's very common to build out these for loops, right? As I showed you, like for both those websites, they have a repeating pattern for multiple pages. So you're going to have to build this out. So rather than being confused a little bit later on how it works, just wanted to show you that over here. All right. What I want to do now is go into our first example, and we're going to look at books to scrape. So it's going to be example 4, but our first website example over here. So example 4, books to scrape. All right, so let's jump into this example. First thing we're going to do is we're going to set our titles and prices to empty lists. So titles equal, and that's going to be empty. And then prices equal, that's also going to be empty over here. And then what we're going to do also is we're going to set our starting page. I'm just going to say page equals 1. We'll start at the first page, but you have the flexibility to start whatever page you want. And we'll put that over there. And yeah, let's start. So what I'm going to do is create a while loop. I'm going to say while page is less than 10. So let's say I want to get, essentially up to page 10 on this side of things. And yeah, so what we're going to do is look at our URL, and we're going to use essentially what I showed you a little bit earlier. We can use an F string. There's a few different ways you could approach this, but I'll just use that over here. So if our URL books to scrape catalog page, we're going to pass in our page over here. And then we have .html. That's just the structure of how this works. Then what we're going to have next is our response. So we'll say response equals request.get, pass in your URL like that. All right. If response status code is 404, right? Equals 404. We're going to break, right? And then what we're going to do is soup equals BeautifulSoup. And that's just in case, like if it's going page after page, right? One page may not exist for whatever reason. You want to break this just in case, right? You don't want any infinite loops. So make sure you put that in there. We'll talk about that in another video, right? Like kind of edge cases and things like that. So just put that in here just in case that happens. Anyways, Beautiful Soup, going back over here, Beautiful Soup. And I said Beautiful Soup twice in a row. We're going to get the response. So response.text, we're going to use the HTML over here. We're going to say HTML.parser like that. Then what we'll say is articles equals soup.find all. And this is where a lot of the data is going to be at. So article and then class underscore equals product pod. I covered this also in those earlier videos. All right. Okay. So now what we're going to do is grab our data from those articles. So we'll say for article in articles, grab our title. So title equals article.h3.a. We'll grab our title. Right. Then we're going to grab our price. So price equals article.find. Grab our p. It's going to paragraph tag class price color. And say text.strip like that. Titles.append. Title, right? Prices.append, add in the price. Now it's really important so you don't get an infinite loop. Make sure you go over here and you say page plus equal 1. That adds up another page, right? So we go from page 1 to page 2 to 3, 4, 5, right? And then set your timer. In this case, I'm going to just say sleep 1 because this site allows us to scrape it. Again, make sure you set a timer. Okay, so nothing really crazy over here, right? Covered all this already in an earlier video. Just make sure that you break if there's a 404. Make sure you add one more on this so this can break the while loop when our pages is 10 or greater, and we should be good. So hopefully no errors on that side of things. And so it'll take a few seconds to run. While that runs, I'm just going to create a very basic data frame on here. So I'm just going to scroll down and do that. df equals pd.dataframe. And by the way, if you didn't get all that code, right, this is an article on the website. So just grab it over there or just pause the video. All right, so we're going to grab our titles and then prices. We should be good to get this into a data frame now. And if you take a look at our data frame, right, we have our title and then a price. And again, like not cleaning the data in this video, already covered how to clean it in a previous video, but it's super common to scrape stuff and you're going to have to clean it up later. But this was our basic example, right? Let's increase the complexity a little bit. And what we're going to do now is take a look at that hockey website. So example 5 is going to be the hockey website. Now, what's going to be nice on this, right, is we have tables, right, multiple pages. We're going to set up a random timer, and we're going to also do a function. So essentially, we're adding in elements of what we covered in earlier videos in the series, right? Tables covered that. Multiple pages is this video. A random timer also this video as well. And then we're going to throw in a function. So a pretty good example for you guys. So let's jump right into it. So, all right, so now let's take a look at our code for our last example. So I'm just gonna call this scrape pages. So scrape pages, and def means we're gonna do a function. So pages like that, num pages. Also, I realized I don't even have a function video on the channel. I don't know when I came to that conclusion. I always thought I had one, but I don't have one in my basic Python series. So maybe I'll make that in the future. Regardless, what we're going to have is our base URL again over here. I'm just going to copy that over. And then since we're scraping from tables, make sure we have our headers and rows. So headers equal, it's going to be blank over there. Rows equal, again, it's going to be blank. And yeah, a little bit more complicated than the previous example just because of the tables, but that's fine. For page in range, and we're going to start with 1, then we're going to go to num pages plus 1. And again, you can like make this more customizable if you wanted to, right? If you want to start on a specific page or not. I don't really care for this video to do that. But for page in range, number of pages, we're going to get our URL. We're going to do a base URL again. And one thing to mention is I'm going to use format this time. It's another way that you could create these strings. So I'm just going to pass in page on that. You'll sometimes see format. You'll sometimes see f strings. Again, I try to give you guys more examples in these videos. And then what we're going to do is response equal request. Man, my typing was terrible there. Response equal request.get. Request.get. We'll pass in our URL like that. Terrible typing twice. Request. Sometimes it's a lot tougher to type and record at the same time and talk. So, okay. We have that all over here. What we're going to do next is we're going to say soup equals beautiful soup. So beautiful soup like that. We're going to get a response.text, Then we're going to grab our HTML parser, html.parser like that. Okay. Then we're going to say table equals soup.find. Then we're going to have our table. And over here also we're going to have class and table. That's great. And then we're going to say if not table, print. We're going to have a f string. I'm just going to paste this out. Again, you just want to build a bunch of if else statements if things don't exist. So like no table found on this page, right? Continue. We can take a look at the next page. On that side of things, if page equals 1, right? So if we're grabbing the first page, we need to make sure we grab the headers once, assuming that the headers are going to be the same page to page, which in this case they are. If they weren't, that's a different solution in its entirety, right? But we're going to say headers equal, and we're going to do some good old list comprehension. th.get text strip equals true. That's we're going to say for table header in table.find all. We're going to grab our table header like that. Great. Then what we're going to do next over here is we're going to extract our rows, which need a for loop. So for table row in table.find all, grab our table row. We're going to say class equals team. Right. Cells equals, and good old list comprehension again, td dot get text strip equals true, strip equals true. I'll clean up some of these errors that you see over here in a second. I'll say for td and tr.find all, tr.find all, pass in td. All right, let me just fix this. It needs to be class underscore. Hopefully no other errors, but a lot of typos this video, so probably will be. If cells rows.append, pass in our cells, append, pass in our cells. All right, then we set our timer over here, which we need to do our random timer. So what we're going to do is just go up over here and we're going to grab our random timer. So just copy this, go down over here. We're going to set our delay, right? And then we're going to say sleep. We don't need that print statement. We'll just go over here and say sleep, and we'll set that, which I forgot to put that in my example code. So I'm just fixing that right now before it gets uploaded to our website. Let me just fix that really quick. All right, and then once that is there, what we can do is build our data frame. So df equals pd.dataframe, dataframe, pass in our rows and columns equal headers, and then we'll say return df. All right, that should essentially be it. Let's see if I had any errors. And then what we're going to do next, I say df equals scrape pages. We're going to say 5 like that. Do have an error. form as, which means a typo. So we'll find that. Should be formats. Try it again. Obviously have some sort of error. I'm just going to debug this really fast and be right back. All right, I'm back. I just copied over my example code. I don't know where my error was, but all this code is on the website. I'm just going to scroll through this really slowly so that way when you guys spot it, let me know, or if you can fix your code right now. But anyways, what I have over here, run that. And then if we run this again, it will work. Great. And then if I go to DF, right, we have our data frame. Now, again, it is super common to just like filter off of results, even if there's multiple pages and stuff like that. So let's just do a very basic filter example, right? Like imagine we had a customer and they just want to see the winning teams. So they want you to scrape this and just grab the winning teams. So df2 equals df. We'll have df wins in here, wins. And then we're going to say is greater than losses. And yes, I know I'm going on here. There's probably other ways to do that. That's fine. Losses, right? And yeah, you can just filter that out. df2, right? And then lastly, let's just send this to a CSV. So we'll just go over here, df2.to CSV, scrape this site stats. We'll put .csv and we'll say index equals false. Index equals false. And yeah, it is going to be over here in the files. Done. All right. So kind of just to recap again, the biggest thing is to figure out the pattern on your site. And for example, on scrape this site, right? If I go to multiple pages over here, you can see, I'll just go over here to another one. Like the pattern is just going to be at the very end, right? This whole URL is the same except for this number over here, which 7 or 8. And then we go back into the books to scrape, right? Same thing. We have the same pattern. We just need to change this page, right? From 4 into 5, 6. So you essentially need to use format or use an F string to constantly change this URL, like set a base URL of some sort. You're going to constantly change it. Again, like you can add in things like if a page doesn't exist, right? The break on this side of things. You want to make sure that you have a timer. So as you can scrape each page, you want to do it ethically. So you want to set some sort of timer. I would recommend setting a random timer, but you can also set one with just an integer. And remember, it's so important that you constantly go up one page. Otherwise, you're going to have issues with your code. Showed you the example of just a while loop. I showed you the example of a for loop, as well as just putting in a function. So that way you can scrape a certain amount of pages. Scraping, again, at the end of the day, really depends on the customer. What do they want? And you build a scraper for that functionality. Yeah, a longer video. Hope you guys enjoyed. I recorded 2 back-to-back today. So I've been recording for like 2 or 3 hours. So yeah, hopefully you learned something new on there. Again, super, super important. Just figure out the pattern going page to page, and it's not too bad. And yeah, I will see you guys in another video. Thank you for checking out this video. And if you found it valuable, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We're trying to release at least 2 to 3 different data videos every single week here on the channel. If you guys need any help with any web scraping projects or want to check the source code, the link is going to be down below in the description, as well as our Discord server. And if you want to continue this series, well, click right over here for the next video.